In Lesson 8, we continue with ordering integers and rational numbers. As a reminder, an integer is a positive or negative whole number, and rational numbers are positive or negative whole numbers, fractions, and decimals. So today you're expected to be able to look at any set of fractions, decimals, or whole numbers, positive or negative, and put them in order from least to greatest. Now, example 1 is a real-world situation. Sam has $10 in the bank. He owes his friend Hank $2.25. He owes his sister $1.75. Consider the three rational numbers related to the story of Sam's money. Write and order them from least to greatest. So first I'm going to write it. So Sam has $10, which is a positive $10. He owes $2.25, which is a negative $2.25. And again, he owes his sister $1.75, so that's a negative $1.75. Now, considering these three rational numbers, if they're on a number line, this is my only positive number. So this is my greatest number. We're going least to greatest. So that means that 10 will be my last one. And then I'm going to have something is less than something is less than 10. So I'm going to go over here to my 0. I'm going to have a negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. Well, this is a negative $1.75. So I go to a dollar. $1.75 is about here because it's almost $2. So this is my 175. And then a negative 2.25, I have to go all the way to the 2 and a little bit further. So that's a 2.25. So going from left to right, least to greatest, 2.25, negative 2.25 is less than negative $1.75, which is less than a positive $10. And remember, this is least because it's furthest to the left on the number line. Now, if we go down here, exercise 2. For each problem, list the rational numbers that relate to each situation, then order them from least to greatest and explain how you determined your answers. So, during their most recent visit to the optometrist, Kadisha and her sister Beth had their vision tested. Kadisha's vision in her left eye is a negative 1 50/100. And her vision in her right eye was the opposite number. So the opposite of a negative 1 1/2 is a positive 1 50/100. Beth's vision was a negative 1 in her left eye and a positive 25/100 in her right eye. So we have four numbers altogether. We have a negative 1 50/100. We have a positive 1 50/100. We have a negative 1. And we have a positive 25/100. Now, if you look at these, looking at the decimals, our common factor would be 25/100. Just think of it like money. This is like $1.50, $1.50, $1.25. You can all make a quarter or use a quarter to make all that. So on your number line, you're going to have 0 here. And then we have 25, 50, 75, 100, 125, 150. And you're going to do the same thing on this other side, but with negatives. So I'm going to have to make my number line longer. So now I can graph it. Negative 150 is here. Positive 150 is here. Negative 1 is here. And positive 25/100 is here. So going from left to right, because again, they want us to find least to greatest. Up here is what they told us. So least to greatest would be negative 150 is less than negative 1 is less than 25/100, which is less than a positive 1 50/100. And I made this order, least to greatest, furthest to the left, to the furthest to the right. So explain how you made your determination. Ordered the numbers left to right based on the number line. we have it. We already have a money example up here. So I showed you that money example. Number 3 is another money example. Again, in this case, you have to determine what is a positive or negative and put it in order. A bill means you owe that money. So that's a negative 38.12. And then another bill is a negative 67.55. And then a tax refund. A refund is positive. And so that would be a positive 25.89. Now, our positive is always our greatest. And again, up here in the directions, they want least to greatest. So I know that 25.89 would be my greatest. And then looking at this, I have a 38 and a 67. Which one will be furthest left on the number line? 67 definitely would be furthest left, so that would be my least. And then 38.12. Now, you don't have to graph these exactly by counting by a common factor. You could just do a number line and say count by tens, and then you would show on that number line. So it would be a negative 70 here. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. And then this one's just a 25, so I would just need to go 10, 20, 30. So the 25.89 would be there. Negative 38.12 would be between 30 and 40. And then 67.55 would be between 60 and 70. And so then left to right would have you do it that way. Number 4, we're working with fractions here. So Monica and Jack and Destiny measured their arm lengths for an experiment in science class. They compared their arm lengths to a standard length of 22 inches. The listing below shows in inches how each student's arm length compared to 22 inches. So we have a negative 1/8, 1 3/4, and a negative half. Now you have two options. You can turn these into decimals, or you can find a common denominator. So I am going to show you both so that you have that option. So a common denominator between 8, 4, and 2. If we skip counted, we'd see that 8 is their common denominator. So a negative 1/8 can stay the same. 1 3/4, I would need to take that times 2, and I'd get 1 6/8. And then I have a negative 1/2, which would be times 4, and that would give me a negative 4/8. And then if you put your number line here, this is a positive number. With this being the positive number, I know that this is the greatest. I don't need to graph it. All I need to look at is my two negative numbers. So if I put my 0 here and I count by 1/8, negative 1/8, negative 2/8, negative 3/8, negative 4/8. So I have my 1/8 and 4/8 on there. My negative 1/8 is there, negative 4/8 is there, which means negative 4/8, or my negative 1/2 is my least, and then my negative 1/8, and then my 1 3/4. And again, the positive is what tells you it's already the greatest. Now, if you converted them to decimals, my 1/8, I'm going to do my long division up here. 1 divided by 8, 10 divided by 8 is 1. I then bring down a 0. 20 divided by 8 is 2. And 20 minus 16 is 4. Bring down another 0, you get 40. And 40 divided by 8 is 5. So this is equal to a negative 125 hundredths. 1 3/4 is equal to a 1 75 hundredths. And negative 1/2 is equal to a negative 0.5. So in comparing place value, in my negatives, a negative 1 is closer to 0 than a negative 0.5. Because 5 is greater than 1, it means my negative will be further to the left. And that's why this order would be true. And your last example, again working with money. Jason is entering college and has opened a checking account which he will use for college expenses. His parents gave him $200 to deposit. This is a positive $200. Jason wrote a check. So a check, you're paying something, that would be a negative $85. And it says another check for $25.34, which is another negative. And then you have to put these in order from greatest to least. So I'm looking for my largest number. I already know that my 200 is the largest because it's my only positive number, greater than. Now I have to look at 25 and 85. Which one will be further to the left? So if we're counting by 20s, let's say, on our number line, we have a 0, negative 20, negative 40, negative 60, negative 80, negative 100. My 25 is going to be in between 20 and 40. And then my 85 is going to be over here. So looking at this from left to right, my 85 is my furthest left, so that's my least, which means my 25.35 is the greatest. And again, we're going from greatest to least, which means we have to go from right to left. So we have a negative 25.35 is greater than a negative 85. And that would be your order. At this point, I'd like you to go ahead and do 5 and 6. When you have that done, please bring it to me. You have two things. You have to order greatest to least. You then have to explain how you arrived at that order. Please have that explanation in your paper before you bring it to me.